Today, within the framework of the 7 Rivers of Jetissu project, the Outdoor KZ Permanent TV expedition is heading to the Lapsi River. In this episode, we will track the river before its confluence with Lake Balkhash. We will explore the low mountains of Keskash Tau and Utentai, walk through the inundated forest, get acquainted with the inhabitants of the foothill steppe, cross the sandy desert and take a glance at the river delta. With the humans moving further and further away from the nature, it is hiding its secrets from us more elaborately. Whereas before people were a part of the wild world, nowadays it is considered big luck to see, at least shortly. The tale of a running away animal, or film a modest sketch from the secret life of wild animals. In this issue, together with our audience, we will discover how the Argali managed to escape from wolves. We will peek at the mating ceremony of turtles and learn why the number of roes is increasing. Our experienced guides will tell us when they saw the saiga on the Lapsi coast the last time. We will see a bastard, a little bastard and some other redbook animals. We will spend several days in the wild together with people who devoted their whole life to protecting the nature of this amazing region. Jetissu or Semireche is a geographical area in Central Asia limited by Lake Balkhash in the north, Lakes Sasikol and Alakol in the northeast, the ridge of the Jungarian Alatau in the southeast, the northern Tian Shan in the south, and the Chu River in the west. There is an opinion that the Semireche region is called so due to the 7 rivers flowing through it, namely the Ili, Karatal, Biyen, Aksu, Lepsi, Baskan and Sarkand. In fact, there are many more rivers in Jetissu, and it's hard to compare them by length and water volume. In poetic Kazakh, the word Jeti, or 7 in English, also has the figurative meaning of many. Thus, Jetissu can be also translated as the area abundant in water. Water has always played a critical role in the life of nomads. In arid regions, water is the synonym of life, as it is needed for irrigation as well as household and wild animals. Of course, some wild species have already adapted to living in the waterless desert, yet the biological diversity along the valleys of inundated rivers is much richer. All rivers flow. About 2,500 years ago, a melancholy philosopher from Ephesus noted that everything is flowing and everything is changing. Rivers change their courses, lakes dry up and fill up with water again and again, and the areas of human and animal habitats change together with the changing coastal outlines. Water pulses as a living blood system. Over time, its flow washes cities, civilizations, and whole species from the planet's surface. Paleontologists seek to first of all conduct excavations along the coasts of ancient watercourses, because this is exactly where the remains of the died-out fauna are mostly encountered. In their turn, archaeologists, before embarking on a search of ancient settlements overgrown with wormwood, carefully study ancient hydrography. People have always tried to lodge on river and lake coasts. If rivers change their courses, oftentimes human settlements follow them. The remains of the most ancient humans discovered in the valleys of Jetissu rivers date back to the Lower Paleolithic. Once upon a time, several Homo species inhabited the area. The Neanderthals and the Denisovians that were later joined by the Homo sapiens. In the 3rd millennium BC, a developed civilization that knew metallurgy and used fighting chariots already lived in the Jetissu. Hundreds of historical monuments of the Saka Scythian culture have been found on the coasts of rivers originating in the Jetissu Alatau glaciers. They were linked by military and political connections with the largest ancient states of Persia, Media and Assyria. In the beginning of our era, the Saka tribal unions were gradually replaced with the Usun state. In the 6th century, Jetisu is a part of the West Turkic Khaganate. In the 8th century of Turgesh state, and in the end of the 10th century of the Karakhanid kingdom. In the early 13th century, Semirechye was taken over by Genghis Khan, and after the disintegration of the Chagatai Ulus, it became home to the state of Mogulistan. In the 15th century, the Kazakh Khaganate appeared in the Semirechye area. Although together the area was called Jetisu, a natural boundary also called Jetisu existed on the territory of the modern-day Sarkhan district, perhaps at the confluence of the Lapsi River and Lake Balkhash. That was where the headquarters of Suyuk Ablai Khanov, a sultan of the Big Horde, was located. Starting the second half of the 19th century, a postal route passed along the coast of Lake Balkhash, and in the 30s of the last century, the Turksib Railroad was built there. The route of our expedition today will go to the Matai railway station on the coast of the Aksu River. Even today, one can find the traces of old animal-drawn transportation roads in the steppe away from the modern auto routes. Serik Smagulov, Akim of Kokterek Rural District, knows exactly where the postal stopover stations were located. This is the Kanjara station, and over there is the Albat station. Then it's Janabulak. These stations were used to transport mail during the Tsar times. The distance between the stations did not exceed a day's pass, or 25 kilometers. For a skilled horseback rider, it would take not more than 2 hours to cover the distance. On a wooden cart, you needed the whole day to overcome the same distance. The feather grass and Kipchak steppes of the foothills are already behind. The real desert starts. As we move ahead to the east, the landscape gradually changes. We are passing by the ridgy sand dunes. The hilly and ridgy sands are oriented by the direction of the dominating winds, from the east to the west and from the west to the east. Local vegetation is rather poor, rare saxaul, saltwort and camel thorn thickets. During the day, the sands seem uninhabited, but if you wander them during the night with a small lamp, you will be surprised by the abundance of life forms around. Looking at the Turkestan plate-tailed gecko, it's hard to imagine that it is a direct descendant of dinosaurs. Rather, it is similar to a toy doggy. The scorpion, although small, inspires much more fear. Our expedition passed the desert area between the two Semirechye rivers, Aksu and Lapsi. The Lapsi station stands on the coast of the river with the same name. We just crossed the Lapsi River and passed by the Lapsi station, so we have about 40 kilometers to go to Kokterek Aul, where the headquarters of our hunting farm is located. The Aul of Kokterek is located on the right bank of the Lapsi. Its residents are mainly engaged in horse and cattle breeding. We are heading to the house of Darkan Jamanbayev, a local farmer and the part-time inspector of Janabulak hunting farm. We couldn't get a better guide. Darkan's father, Kaijan Aga, knows a lot of local history. Earlier, until the 80s and 90s of the last century, whole herds of the Saiga lived around our villages. At that time, they planted 3,000 hectares of land behind the mountains. Now they disappeared almost completely for some reason. But we still have the argali, Siberian roe deer and other animals and birds in our mountains. In due time, the group of the Saiga wandering between Ayaguz and the Ili rivers totaled over 10,000 animals. In the recent 3 years, people started to periodically see a small Saiga herd in the area. They came back after being gone for some time. According to the law of Kazakh hospitality, travelers are first invited to a meal and only after eating they talk business.
At
last we have arrived. We are at the headquarters of the Janabulak hunting farm. The farm's director, Yebol Demiubayev, kindly agreed to take our film crew on this scheduled spring animal count mission. This week, the group of game managers and rangers plans to survey all 4 landscape zones within the borders of the hunting farm: the wetlands, Tugay woods, steppe and mountain. This landscape and biological diversity is the main competitive advantage of Janabulak hunting farm. Our foremost duty is to protect the wild animals. We heard that currently the government is preparing to adopt the amendments and supplements to the legislation regulating the hunting service within hunting grounds. If we were given a wider authority, we could be more efficient in combating the illegal animal production. We are looking forward to it. A 3,000 meters wide strip of Tugay woods stretches along the Lapsi River. Last century, during the time of extensive agricultural policy, state farms had to regularly increase their cropland area. The irrigated agriculture in the coastal areas of inundated rivers led to the reduction of the area covered with Tugay woods several times. In market conditions, cultivation of garden crops at a great distance from cities and large settlements became economically unprofitable. The former farm fields gradually overgrew with Tugay woods and the wild animals like pheasants, roes and bulls returned. Darkan's farm is located near the former camp subsidiary farm. Here the unescorted prisoners produced bricks, planted onions and melons, as well as bred cobs and ducks in the nearby ponds. They used to cultivate all this area around. Now the fields and the people are gone. The riparian Tugay woods have returned, which is great. After a long break, we see roe deer and other animals and birds here. Their number is growing. The Lapsi River flows slowly, but the time flows even slower. Comparing yesterday with today, it might seem that nothing has changed. Yet looking at the ruins of the punitive isolation ward, the riparian forests that have absorbed the former farm fields, the pheasants and roes wandering amidst the ruins of the old camp, one truly understands that everything is indeed moving and changing. I've built a cattle breeding farm here and opened a private enterprise. I have become a conservation inspector because I'm a local resident and am concerned about increasing the number of wild animals and birds in the area. For several decades now, the wild-growing wheatgrass, the favorite food of the roe deer, is rising on the abandoned fields. In recent years, the number of roes in the coastal riparian woods has significantly increased, whereas it fell in many other places. What's the reason for that? Darkon has answered this question rather precisely. The area of available habitats has increased, the food supply has improved, and the wild-hoofed animals have immediately reacted to the changed conditions by their growing population. The nature in the Lipsi floodplains and the Kizkash Mountains is very rich. We have argali, roe deer and pheasants. There's lots of fish in the water. It is our duty to preserve this wealth. The population of the little bustard or Ortis tetrax is currently on the rise. In the second half of the last century, this bird of the bustard family was on the verge of extinction due to the land plowing of their traditional habitats. The thing is that bustards can nest only in untouched, virgin soil. Even listing the bustard in the Red Book did not stop the reduction of its population. It was the restoration of vegetable communities in the valleys of inundated rivers that saved bustards from complete disappearance in Jeti Su. In the fall and winter, bustard males and females are of sandy color. During mating, the male's neck turns black with 2 white stripes. When you look at it, it seems as if a male bustard is trembling in the wind, which means that a female is somewhere nearby. Bustard or great bustard, as it is also called, is the largest bird of the Otididae family. It is included in the red list, but the reason for the reduction of its population was not the plowing of steppes, but the direct manhunt, poaching. Out of 7 rivers in Jeti Su, at least 2 are connected by a system of lakes, channels and locks. A waterlock also divides the Baskan River into 2 parts. One of its sleeves goes to the fields, supports the Owl of Kokterek and falls into the Lepsi, and the other one falls into Lake Altai. Ducks nest and muskrats build their huts on lakes and canals. Pheasants inhabit the coastal thickets. In spring and fall, semi-aquatic birds gather around the lakes also. Common or shell duck is the most recognizable duck species. The Kazakhs considered it sacred, perhaps due to the similarity of the sad shell duck sound to the groans of wounded soldiers. A sport fishing license costs 800 tenge or $2.5. One license allows catching up to 10 kilograms of fish. Local water bodies are abundant in carp, catfish, crucian, pike perch, bream and other fish species. Rooks are colonial birds. Every year they nest on the same trees. Each colony may amount to up to several hundreds of nests. Rooks appear in the Lapsi floodplain in early March, and in April rook couples already have baby birds. Konrad Lorenz, a well-known ethologist, started studying the behavior of rooks being kept in a prisoner of war camp in central Kazakhstan. Prisoners and security guards joked that he was simply counting crows, which means daydreaming in Russian. In spite of all the sneers, later Lawrence managed to get the Nobel Prize and became one of the founding fathers of modern ethology. The research by ethologists of the University of Massachusetts showed that rook's intelligence is comparable to that of a chimpanzee. Solving the tasks by the experimenters, the birds demonstrated the rudimented rational activity. Rooks live in tree crowns, but the colonies of social animals can be also found around the tree roots. Ants, unlike rooks, do not demonstrate some kind of special intelligence, but their instincts are so developed that allow them building and maintaining a complex social structure of a medieval, caste-based state with a queen, knights, soldiers and peasants. Males and females have wings, while working ants don't have them, as their destiny is to labor away days and nights for the benefit of the ant hill. Each landscape zone with a set of biological diversity is great in its own way. An opportunity to visit several of them in a short time is beyond expectations. About an hour ago we were wandering in the Tugay jungle, and now we are ascending the Kizkashtau mountains. The task of the hunting rangers here is to do the count of the mountain rams, or the argali.
Хребет Кызкаштау тянется примерно на 30 километров.
The ridge of Kizkashtau extends for approximately 30 kilometers and is 10 kilometers wide. The ephemeridae decorated the spring steppe in the style of Kurak Korpe, a traditional Kazakh bright-toned sewing technique. Tulips and crocuses are so beautiful, but their life is so short. In mid-May they will already fade to reappear only next April. The accounting technique is rather simple. The monitoring route marked on the GPS navigator is called the transect. As a rule, the registration route passes through the highest points with the best visibility. During daytime, it's really hard to notice an argali as they hide from the heat in narrow valleys and niches, only coming out in the morning and in the evening to graze. The inspectors identify the sex and age of each encountered animal, as well as the corresponding azimuth and geographical coordinates. All this information is accurately entered in the field log. It's time to have a little bite after a good foot walk. The mountain onion became a pleasant addition to a rather modest field food ration. It's also great for your health due to increasing immunity to cold-type diseases. During lunch, the monitoring group is trying to finalize their animal counts. Based on the last calculations, here we're talking about 60 argali and over 200 roes. We have been collaborating with this hunting farm for a year and are engaged in hunting management and planning, protecting the argali and other animals and birds. Yet we have to admit that our authority is still too limited to effectively combat poaching. We need more state support, which would give an additional impulse to the further development of this hunting farm. Roes are a widespread species. They live in the mountains, in the steppe and in Tugay woods. They can be seen even on desert periphery. Human remains the key enemy of the roe deer. The roe population in the Kizkashtau mountains is in good condition because there is almost no economic activity going on here. A couple of horse herds in the area don't create too many problems for the roes. Besides, unlike the domestic sheep, infectious diseases from horses cannot transmit to roe deer and argali. A couple of wolves appear on the ridge crest. The hunt will soon begin. The predators appear for a minute, notice a group of female argali in the gorge and disappear among the stones immediately as they need to creep up closer to their potential catch. Sometimes, wolves use the drive hunting technique. One of them toils the kill and the other one waits for the victim in an ambush. A third wolf appears on the scene. Perhaps it's the last year's puppy or yearling, as they usually keep to their parents. The male continues to move along the crest, while the female goes to the gorge bottom. The argali become a bit concerned and attentively peer at the opposite slope. The old female thoroughly sniffs the air. Alarm! Run for your life! Wolf's life is not easy. 9 hunts out of 10 fail. Predators, unlike humans, are not capable of destroying a population of their prey, as they can successfully hunt only with dense game population. The last predator will die of hunger much earlier than it will catch its last victim.
In
the old days, our ancestors hunted wild animals moderately, never killing more than they actually needed. In the days of famine, they killed animals to get meat in order to survive. Today, with the assistance of the state, it is necessary to preserve animals and birds for our children and grandchildren. For the sake of future generations, we have to unite our efforts and enthusiasm to achieve this task. The strategy to involve local communities in nature conservation is yielding its fruit slowly but steadily. Just as Batas of the past were protecting their land from foreign invaders, the current generation of village residents are protecting their natural wealth from poachers. If someone comes here to preserve our wild nature and with pure thoughts, we are willing and glad to accept them as guests. But if they come here to shoot whatever they see, they are uninvited guests, and it is necessary to take corresponding counteraction measures. It's getting dark, and the dusk hints that the weather might worsen during the night. It's time to go back to the camp and put up the tents. We got a bit unlucky with the weather. Yesterday it rained all day long, but today it cleared up, which gives us a chance to complete the count. The group is moving towards the Akarali Mountains. Rocky sites are alternating with wide intermountain valleys. It seems like the remains of an ancient tunnel. We take soil samples. Most likely it's gypsum. In the ancient time, it was used for construction and making alkali to produce soap. In those days, Jetisu was going through some hard times, as that was the time of bloody battles between the Kazakhs and the Jungars. The valley of the Lapsy River was right on the crossing of the main military roads between the southern coast of Balkhash and the Jungarian Ridge. Many times this area passed from hands to hands, and numerous legends and archaeological finds testify to that. The description of one of the campaigns by a famous Kazakh commander, Kabanbay Batyr, states that the camp of the Jungarian Kuntaiji was located somewhere on the banks of the Lapsy River, near its confluence with Lake Balkhash, although modern researchers have not yet found any traces of it. Maybe the reason for that is that the river bed passed somewhere else in those days. Maybe we will be able to find the traces of the ancient river course. In any case, we should try. This is the grave of Kurumbai. It's probably 300 years old. One thing is indisputable. In olden days and nowadays, people used to and still build wintering sites and dowels close to stable water supply sources. During the time of Soviet state farms, they tried to change this rule by setting up farms near artesian wells. But at any opportunity, people still moved closer to natural water bodies, like small rivers, streams and springs. It's just so much more beautiful there. This small stream originates in a spring on the mountain slope, flows for not more than 500 meters and is not connected to any big water bodies on its way. So how did these tiny fish end up here? Their exact genetic examination will identify their species, but by their appearance they are similar to the Balkash minnow. In winter, the temperature here falls down to -40 degrees Celsius, and such a small stream freezes through for sure. So how do these fish survive in it? Maybe they bury themselves in the silt, or freeze into the ice, fall into anabiosis, and wake up in the spring to live posterity. For certain, this stream would generate a lot of interest on behalf of ichthyologists. The fishback has a shepherd. A tessellated water snake lives nearby. It appears dissatisfied with our invasion into the closed ecosystem where it was an absolute master. Water snakes are not poisonous, but it is trying to scare us away. A Todagama agrees to a photo session. Perhaps it had never seen humans before and knows nothing about the troubles which can these strange two-legged creatures might bring. At danger, Todagamas dig into sand. In this case, it's either there is no sand nearby or we don't seem overly dangerous. The young Todagama is acting like a true hero. A terrible tank is approaching it, but it's not even thinking about escaping. It moved a little out of politeness to let a senior lady pass by. The seniors are to be paid due respect after all. Whereas Todagamas live only 2 to 3 years, turtles can live up to 500. The turtle cares less about the Todagama. It's in a hurry as it has only 1 month to arrange its private life and fatten up before falling asleep until the next spring. Turtles usually wake up in early April and fall into hibernation again in July. It's not for nothing that they say a good sleep prolongs life. Such an economical spending of vital power allows them to easily live beyond 100 years. It looks like our heroine has an admirer. Yet what about its manners? It is trying to bite its lady. Ninja turtles would certainly not approve of such behavior. Aggression elements are always present in the mating rituals of male turtles, but at the initial stage they are of symbolical nature. It's just slightly biting its darling. In case the ladylove perceives the courting favorably, they remain rather tactful. On the contrary, if the bride is not ready, the symbolical aggression turns into a banal fight. When the gentleman understands that it is rejected, it gives full vent to its irritation. Moving closer to Lake Balkash, the landscape is changing again. Mountains grow lower, transform into steppe, then into Saxaul Desert, and finally into coastal reeds and Tugai thickets. In the Lapse's mouth, there is a fishing village named after Mukantulibayan. As before, nowadays the fish from Balkash provides the locals with food and income. We are trying to get to the coast of Balkash, but the ice has filled the small mouth of the Lapse River. The ice jam caused water to flood the floodplain 7 kilometers in diameter. The water will soon leave and the flooded inundated meadows will yield a rich grass harvest. We might come back here when all the ice melts down. We had a nice journey along the Lapse River from its exit to the foothill plain until the confluence with Lake Balkash. By far we saw not everything that could be seen on the way, but we tried. In one of the next expeditions, we will show you the Lapsey River source in the glaciers of the Jetissu Alatau Mountains.